Well, good morning, everybody. I'll be honest, when I woke up early this morning, I was a bit anxious to take a look at this map. And what I really want to understand out of this upcoming pattern is where are we going to get these next two tropical systems that are trying to develop here in this side of the Atlantic? Are they going to influence the eastern United States? Because we've seen some pretty wild model runs as of late, some of them bringing in up to a foot of rain into North Carolina, and then others bringing in nothing. And that's always the case when you're several days out. The uncertainty in the track is hard to pin down, and it's a bit frustrating, especially when you're in drought like the Carolinas are right now. Elsewhere around the world, we watched Ragasa slam into very close to Hong Kong, hitting Guangdong province again, and we're still keeping an eye on Neoguri and the potential for it to move north. But I'll be honest, this pattern is being dominated by a bit of a, like I've been talking about, and Matt mentioned, this amplified look, which is favoring deep lows in the Gulf of Alaska and a broader ridge over North America. So let's take a look at our latest setup here, knowing that these next two systems, 93 and 94L is what they're being called, have the potential to hit the East Coast. So here we go. This is the newest update from weathernerds.org. It's a great website. I hope you all bookmark it if you love forecasting the weather. They have on there the ability to look at the ensemble tracks. And so you have an L and a track for every single ensemble member. And what we're doing is just looking at the center of low pressure and tracing it. And the idea here is that these next two systems are going to interact in some way. So you can see one is doing this and the other is doing that. And well, maybe I was a little off in that drawing, but something more like this. And what we're trying to assess here is their interaction and what it means for the East Coast of the United States. All right. Now, just as a reminder, the spread in the model runs is huge, meaning any small little error that we have in the initial observations of these systems can give you a whole massive range of outcomes. So if you just need the quick soundbite here, I would just tell you that if you're from Florida, Georgia, Northern South Carolina, Virginia, I need you just to be watching this carefully. Pay attention to the updates. You're going, where do I go? What's the best website? It's simple. I would just go to this one, Polar Weather. There it is. I like it a lot. Which one is it here? Oh, it's at the top. Sorry. Polar, it says polarwx.com/tropical. Okay. polarwx.com/tropical. And here's what Tomer does. Tomer gathers all of the model information, and he gathers the National Hurricane Center information and puts it all on a suite of maps that you can look at. You can pick your region like the North Atlantic and see these things, and then look at the individual storm systems as well, which we're going to do in just a few moments. I bookmark it. It's a great website to have. And as we get in here and look at this, I'm going to look at Invest 94L first. Okay, that would be the wave that is on the eastern side of the two waves that are there. So what I'm talking about is this one. All right. And as we have a closer look at that wave, we can see track density with lines, no lines, and then the ensemble plots. And you can choose which model you're looking at. So I'm choosing Google DeepMind right now. Why not? It's an AI model. We need to compare it to our dynamical models and our ensemble models. And you can tell that some of the ensemble members are bringing this closer to the Carolina coast, maybe even to Georgia. Now, if we flip around the models, let's look at the UK Met. Oops, sorry, not the UK Met, the CMC. So this is out of Canada. It's a little bit different view of where this could particularly go. So let's get into the more familiar models like the EPS. So the EPS, this is the European Ensemble. As you can see here from its newest runs, there just seems to be the potential for this system to get somewhere here. And although the spread is enormous, you can see the averages are taking it somewhere in there. So we have to pay attention to this and continue to use other models as a way of assessing. So for example, the GFS, which is the ensemble members of our model run in the United States, for those of you that are watching this in the US, it keeps it out to open ocean, much less of a threat. So one develops a system into the East Coast, that'd be the European setup, and the GFS model keeps it out. Now you're going to ask me, well, which one is going to be right? And we don't know. So we just need to be transparent. There are going to be some big, bold swings for the fences, and there's going to be a lot of folks just saying, hey, look out, it's the end of the world, and they just want your eyeballs. And the reality is that there's too many complicating factors. Like the fact that there's a stalled out boundary here, there's a front that just moved through the mid-south there, and there's a following trough that's going to be coming through the jet stream that could punch this thing out as well. And don't forget, when you have too close in proximity tropical systems, these are tightly wound lows, they tend to exhibit what's called the Fujiwara effect. You may start to hear more meteorologists talking about this today because they're going to see probably what I saw this morning in the model runs. So where are we in time? This is this is Friday. As we work our way into the weekend, there's the two systems. Okay. Now, when they're this close in proximity, what happens is you have circulation around both. These are going to be spinning counterclockwise like this. And it's kind of easy to see here in the European model, but the one on the backside seems to be more intense than the one on the front. Now, these two systems, unlike what you might see in the movies, they cannot come together to make some massive perfect storm. They can't. They would cancel each other out, right? So if you brought the flow around like this, okay, so just, we're going to do the same thing, but let's just start the arrow here. There we go. Those arrows are going the same direction. You see how there's competing force? So they would actually, if they came together, they would ruin their rotation. So they don't. They avoid each other. And what tends to happen is they tend to orbit. One tends to go like that, and the other one tends to go like this. That's the Fujiwara effect, named after the Japanese scientist who discovered it in the West Pacific. Now, if you, and this is me, don't want to see a tropical system hit the East Coast, I know we're in drought, but I don't want the devastating effects of these. We want this system, the one that's on the right here, the one that's to the east, to be dominant. And the European model is trying to do that. So look, we see them getting close in proximity. Clearly, the one on the backside is stronger in the latest European model forecast. And the hope, okay, is two things. There is a part of the upper level jet stream that's trying to work its way into here. Now, that's not shown on this map. All right, but that would be something that could kick out these systems. But the second thing is the pull around this system could grab this and pull it farther to the south. Now watch. Where are we in time? This is Monday, early Monday morning. And do you see how one system goes north? Did you see that? And just pulls this one away from the shore. Now, there's going to be competing effects. If the model's right and there is high pressure here, what if that high pressure is not in that place? What if it's farther to the south or east? Especially if it's to the east, the directing winds around this could push both systems to the east coast. That's the uncertainty we have right now. So the beauty of these forecasts, you're saying, well, you can't pin it down. What's the use of listening? The use of listening is that we're out here, several days in advance. This is next Monday. And we're at least capable of saying, be prepared. That's all, right? It's the Boy Scout motto. Be prepared. Be ready for this. Because there's the chance, and luck favors the prepared. And so I want you all to watch. That's the thing. So I'm going to leave it at that because I can't add more to this discussion without taking something away. Does that make sense? The more I sit here and try to diagnose it or to show you other models, like let's go look at the GFS, which look at this. That's where one of the systems is by Sunday. Here's the other. And it doesn't even develop it. You see that? It doesn't develop the lead wave. So it just has the second one, stays out to open ocean. And yep, that is a possible scenario in this case. So that's it. We need to know the potential is there. To be honest, you want me to wish cast it? I'd like it to graze the coast. I want the outer rain bands. I want 20 to 30 mile an hour winds, not 100. And I want rain. That's what I want. But we just have to be careful to understand that the closer these get, the greater the influences could be. We need to watch it, all right? Now, the reason I want all those things is because have a look at this map, looking at the last 30 days of precipitation. The entirety of the southeast coast up to parts of the mid-Atlantic have been extremely dry. We had one system, right, we talked about last week, that got into Virginia, Maryland, Delaware. Even with that one system, it tried to return it up here to 60 to 90% of normal precipitation. But if you kind of zoom in here, let's just take a look at the southeast coast. We've got several places that are not just dry, but bone dry. And the evaporation rates here can be extremely high just simply due to its proximity, farther to the south and access to steeper sun angles and therefore higher evaporation rates on the heat. And as a result, we've seen the crops here. In fact, I was just texting my good friend Rocky. He lives right down here. He's like, these crops are fried and we need moisture ahead of this. And if you'd like to see statistically how dry it is in that area, this is since September 1. Now, we have been focusing a lot on the drought here and the drought that's moved into the Northeast, especially the epicenter of that drought in parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia. But if you lop off August, which is when that drought began, this whole region here, you can see how dry this particular region has been since the start of September. And there are a few climate reporting districts. In fact, my colleague Rocky is in this one that's now having the driest September on record. Now, you saw it the other day. There still has been moisture that's come through. It's just been going around a high-pressure cell that's been here because the Bermuda high is gone. And that's what's delivered the storms in this area. And yeah, we did get some rain in this area. We are watching more wildfires in the northwest as we speak because of the dryness that is here in the Columbia Basin getting up to the Cascade Mountains. But in California, we've had some moisture, right? We had the remnants of a tropical system. We had a cutoff low that sat here this week, and that's helped bring in some moisture there. So on radar right now, there's that cutoff low delivering some coastal clouds and showers this morning. We then watched our kind of deep upper level low, which is here, and the surface low that was out ahead of it. I know you can't see that because I write in black, but the surface low that was out ahead of it following the boundary and bringing rain into some areas that are desperate for it. And I'm thinking about the rain this morning right now going through Ohio. I mean, I'll be honest, last night I was with a group of friends, and when it started to rain outside of where we were in Champaign, we all just kind of stopped and listened. It was just like, oh my gosh, we haven't heard that, in so long. But as I noted with this rainfall, and yes, there were some pretty nasty storms with this as well, but as I noted with this rainfall, there was going to be a pretty sharp boundary on its northern side as to who was going to be able to get the rain in and who was not going to be able to see this rain. And just to make a point here about this, I zoomed in just on the Midwest just as a point to look at. And, my parents actually live right over here, and they were on the dry side. We ended up getting almost 0.8 of an inch. Just one county to my north, Ford County, missed almost all of this. And you can see northern Illinois as well. Now, I know I'm picking on my home state here, but you can see that all across this entire system. Now, the very good news, southern Illinois, parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and now Kentucky are getting this rain. In fact, if I take a little bit farther to the south and add the last 2 days onto this, Arkansas has been in a world of hurt with respect to weather. We've been trying to showcase that. But you can see here that, my goodness, they needed every ounce of this, although in some places it got very, very heavy rainfall out of this as well. Okay. One thing to point out here real quick, I'd like to go back and just show you one thing I want to make sure that we do not miss out on. Let's go back to the true color image. So this is starting yesterday. And I want to just take a look. In fact, let's do a sub-regional, and let's go right up here to Washington State. So if you have a look, I do want to mention those fires, so you can see them here pretty clearly. But last night, this was pretty crazy. You could start to see how the smoke is settling into the valleys, and the air quality, imagine, is terrible where that was occurring. And I'll be watching the sun rise here in a few hours over the west, and we'll be able to see what that smoke did last night. But again, just wanted to point out a couple of things here to take note of in the northwest United States. All right, with this rainfall, question is how much of this got in the Mississippi? And as we mentioned, it's just a blip. The river came up 0.25 feet from yesterday. Now, more water will percolate into the river as we go forward, but this did not kind of stop this progression in this direction, especially when we step back and say, well, what's coming in the next week? Now, you know what's happening. There is a deep low that's in the Gulf of Alaska. All right. We have a system exiting. We're going to watch tropical systems coming through here, but there is a large section of North America that is not expecting much precipitation. This will need to be watched carefully to deliver some late season rain into Arizona and New Mexico. And we'll come back to the west in just a few moments. But the pattern really, if anything, only got more amplified. Next 15 days, we can now see this setup. And it seems as though Europe is blocked. Can you see that? And that blocking pattern over Europe is, I think, bunching things up over the North Atlantic, despite the speed in the jet here. And that's what's reinforcing this ridge as part of it. It's part of it. It's the depth of this trough that's also helping as well. So the net effect of that, if you just come over and have a look at it, is this system exiting right here, while it's bringing much needed rain to some key areas. And yes, Kentucky, along the Ohio River, and then getting into West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, you do have more rain coming in addition to what you just saw. It's going to be here by tomorrow morning. And the rain that's moving into the Northeast, man, every ounce of this is needed. But after that system goes through, It's not like there's a follow-up low that's just going to drive its way in here to deliver more rainfall. And as I mentioned, there is an upper-level trough that's going to sneak into this area, but it's going to be starved for moisture. But that could be influential on those two tropical systems off the southeast coast. So with all of that being said, let's go have a look at our kind of matrix of maps here. And I hope you go look at this on agweather.com. And what I have up here is 5 maps from the European model, the AI model, the GFS, the MBM, and the WPC. And I always find it instructive just to step back and look at all of them collectively at once and see where the holes are. And it becomes pretty clear when we look at this that there is a very influential ridge of high pressure just anchored over North America, and it's keeping this whole region drier. Okay. Now, I mentioned the west. We do have a trough that's off the coast. You saw it a moment ago. Well, somewhere in here. There it is. And how much influence will this have over time? If we take a look at the western United States, we notice that as we get into Thursday and Friday, there's a low that comes in to this part of British Columbia. You can see the flashes of storms that are happening in Arizona and New Mexico. As we work our way into Saturday, Sunday, there is a coastal front that comes through. That's going to knock temperatures back and bring in chances of rain from Northern California all the way through Washington, Oregon. And it seems as though this particular system is going to be able to deliver rain Nevada, parts of Idaho, and even into parts of Montana, which need some rain pretty badly too. And then there's another deep coastal low. This one's next Tuesday that comes in and hits the west coast. And take a look at that. Maybe some snow at the highest elevations of the Sierra Nevada and maybe the Cascades as well. We've been watching some of the cameras on the passes, and there's been some snow. So the west is bringing in some moisture. If we just kind of look at how much, this is what we're seeing. This is through Monday into Tuesday, and we'll just kind of play this out. So yeah, the Columbia Basin, Central Oregon, pockets of Montana, not a whole lot. And I think you can look at these rainfall totals in the Snake River Valley and just understand they're going to be the distribution of these rainfall totals is going to be all over the place. So I would never take the model verbatim, but there is some snow coming in with this. And if we just look at the snowfall forecast, playing this out, take a look. There's some chances that the peaks of some of our mountains here are going to grab some snow in the west. Bigger picture though, this is the next 10 days on the probability of staying below a ½ inch. And that is a big wedge of the country that's showing up with color shading, meaning we've got drier conditions across a broad area while this pattern stagnates into a bigger ridge. Okay, I bet I'll get a new model run if I flip this over, but let's go to 1 inch. Yeah, just started coming in. So let's go back to the 0Z. If I show you the probability of getting an inch, these are our wet spots now. All right, so this will be the trickiest area because there is some contribution from the system coming through now, but the tropical influence here is what we're going to watch. And if you're curious, the ensemble, it is trying to bring in moisture from this system into South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. Probabilities are very high just off the coast because the model averages is what you're seeing here. And, what you're seeing is where the models overlap. That's the best way to tell you. So you're getting the chance of heaviest rain in this area because more ensemble members are taking the tropical system just off the coast. All right. If we get out there farther into week 2, all the models look like this. We have the low that's still here, so we have our best chances of being above average there. We're watching the tropical influence here, and the midsection of the country is drier overall. And that's supported by several models. All of them basically look like this. The AI model is a little wacky because it goes from run to run trying to develop more tropical systems. So have a look at it on the website, but just take it with a bit of grain of salt this morning. And the longer range models haven't really changed much either. That's the October forecast from the GFS extended, and it still keeps this part from Texas and Oklahoma to Louisiana, Mississippi to the western side of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Arkansas on the drier side of average. This side of the Appalachian Mountains on the drier side of average. There's our wet corridor here. The west could have more of an influence of, extratropical lows in the Gulf of Alaska. But we still see drier conditions here. Compared to the European model, though, this morning's European update, if you go all the way out there to the end of October, is attempting wetter conditions in this area, near normal to wetter. And that will be critical to watch just because of what will be happening with the remainder of harvest, which is probably going pretty rapidly right now in this region, and what it could mean for getting the soil ready for fall field work. But both models have anchored dryness in here. And I know you listened, Matt and I, we both talked about this, me more. I have thought that there's going to be something coming out of the Caribbean or the Bay of Campeche or the Gulf. I've gone after it for a while. And I'm only focusing on it because that could be the cure for the drought in this area. And I still don't, there's nothing in the near term. Let's monitor it together, but I just don't have anything. On the temperature side of things, it's mild. So our frost risk is limited to highest elevations here in the Rockies. We've even eliminated frost risk in the Northeast where we've had some frosty mornings recently. High temperatures today, getting into tomorrow. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now watch the west cool down this weekend. There's Sunday, Monday. That's when that front comes through. But I mean, this is going to be this is almost like summertime temperatures in some places here where we're 10 to 15 degrees above average. It's a very, very, to be honest, this is quite pleasant. Very, very mild. Getting here into the end of September. And that would be September 30th. Beyond that pattern seems to be not movable. Now, I've made the case, and Matt and I've been trying to see when we're going to get rid of this mild air. Because we play this out, we're only cooler here. Some of this is rain-cooled, some of this is because of the front that's coming through. But you play this out to 10 days. Look, you can see where the ridge is. It's pretty clear in the temperature profile. And then day 10 through 15, I had expected by the time we got here to start to see this area cooling off. We thought we could build up a reservoir of cooler air here that was going to get displaced. It would dive, and I don't know where it is anymore. Even the GFS, which had been the biggest supporter in terms of models, has not, continued to develop it. It's backed off on this, meaning that we could get into the front of October and even beyond with more mild air. So that was kind of, unless something shows up to surprise us, I think our forecast for that cool down east is a swing and a miss, unfortunately. So we start to look for more dominant drivers going forward. The MJO is still collapsed into null space, so there's not a strong signal there. We look at the ocean temperatures. We've continued to see cooling under the trough here. That's expected to continue. But, is La Nina really influencing the pattern right now? I just say that it's in fall. Teleconnections are weak in fall. Flow is weak in fall. And I showed you on, was that Monday? The jet's coming across and just going over the top and then doing this. And it doesn't seem to be as though there's a lot of players influencing that as we go forward. So where are we, going forward? What do the longer range models say? Well, it's the end of a month. I'm going to get new long range model updates soon, which we can diagnose and analyze and see what they're picking up on. But as it stands, I think I'm just going to come back to, where did I put it? I'm going to come back to this and just when something here has to give, and when it gives, we'll have a new story to develop. But I don't have clairvoyance on what that is at this point. What I do want to talk about to finish it is this, okay? If we were going to be seeing a very active start to the monsoon, we've got to bring higher pressure farther to the north to draw the monsoonal moisture in. And if you have a look right now at the winds, it's not there. So there is still a pull coming in here, but this is grabbing drier subtropical air versus the more humid, more moisture-laden air from these regions around the top into Brazil. So the rainfall that's come through Brazil lately, this has all been along a front. So this is the last couple of days of rainfall. See the frontal boundary here? Now this is enough rain to get some farmers going much, much more aggressively. And I had a chance to talk with a group of Brazilian growers yesterday, which was very, very valuable to me. I hope it was to them as well. And they are, in their words, they're aggressively trying to get this crop established just because they knew the potential with a La Nina is to deliver better rainfall north. Now, in the near term, and we talked about this, the monsoon tends to come in fits and starts. So if you notice, there's the rain on the boundary that just came through. But then it's not a whole lot being added to this area afterward. And there is another front that comes through southern Brazil and Paraguay. See it right there? That's next Tuesday, Wednesday. But not a whole lot of additional rainfall in this area, which is why over the next 14 days, we still see a lot of the Cerrado drier than average. Now, they're very well aware that the monsoon does this. It gives you a shot, then backs off, gives you a shot, then backs off. But the question is, when is it going to come on in full force? And that would only happen when this high gets a little farther to the north to draw moisture in fully around. And that's usually an October feature. It's not usually in September it becomes fully established. So speaking of October, you can pick whichever model you want. The GFS is like, no, not going to start. It's going to be very, very dry. I mean, that's the GFS forecast through the end of October. And the European extended is like, no, I think it's actually going to rain. And you're going, again, Eric, tell me which one's right. To be honest, the European has probably done a better job lately. It's picked up on the drier signal here, which has remained, and better moisture in through this area, especially into this area where the fronts have been parking. But question is always going to be, what about planting progress? How quickly is things going to go? Are things going to go as we progress through the next 30 days? Here's the idea. 80% would be right on time if they're done, 80% done planting by a month from now. If that's the case, the crop calendar is going to be wide open. We're just going to be watching regional effects going forward, and that's going to be the key to, I think, seeing how South America is going to play out. So that's what I have for you today. We'll continue to watch these systems. Please make sure that you're taking advantage of these resources we point out, especially on agweather.com, and also the one I mentioned with polarweather.com, polarwx.com. That's it. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.